Welcome to Rules of Villainy, episode 25, where three new trading card game players quest and challenge their way to the competitive top tables and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. This week, we'll discuss the latest news in Lorcana, answer your questions, and maybe talk about the three pillars of Lorcana. I'm Villain Vince, joined by my two co-hosts, as always, Villain Andy and the mayor of Lorcana, Brad. How's it going tonight, gentlemen?
I'm feeling great. How about you?
I'm feeling good. Not bad.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, I believe you've got some special news.
I do. Yeah. A number of people know already, but for the bigger audience, I had a big moment over the weekend and proposed to my lady friend. I am now an engaged mayor.
Wow. So we got here's the thing. Is it if I didn't have audio issues before this podcast, I had on my pad, I had an applause, like one of those fake applause things for it.
So I'll put it in post for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. But one cool thing too is we the wider audience might actually get to meet her next week, as we have some plans for a holiday episode.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So listeners, next week we will be having an episode, but we're going to do a little special holiday episode, which I'm just going to preface here. We want your questions, and they don't have to necessarily be Lorcana. They can be Disney related as well. We want to answer your questions, and we're going to have a bunch of familiar and maybe unfamiliar faces on the show to talk through. And so it's going to not be a regular episode as we usually break down the meta and stuff. It's going to be a little bit more fun. Hopefully, as you're driving safely to home or to wherever you're going, you can listen in the car or
unwrapping gifts.
Yeah.
So nothing like Christmas morning when listening to the Rules of Villainy and unwrapping your gifts.
Yeah. Well, I will say when I was younger, this shows what a nerd I am, is there used to be this like tech TV channel on cable, and they would do like a 24-hour like a live ship program, like breaking down a bunch of everybody's like new tech presents. And I thought it was like the coolest thing because I was never going to get any of that cool tech stuff. So I was living vicariously through random callers. Anyway,
I bet you had a talk boy, didn't you?
Next, Underworld news. Yeah, but no, getting to Underworld news, I think the first thing we have is an event we'll be live streaming this weekend. Andy, you want to talk a little bit about that?
This Friday we didn't get a chance to work it all out as quickly as we wanted, but it just kind of got sprung on us. One of our longtime friends of the podcast, Grapes Games, is doing a all kids tournament. It's a starter deck event where a bunch of the kids in the St. Louis area will be getting together and going against each other. I think there's an enchanted card as the prize for it.
Snuggly Duckling, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even have that one. I'm gonna see if I can enter and be like, hello kids.
Don't let Mikey hear you.
Right, yeah.
I played with Mikey over the weekend, and I told him I was gonna sneak in there. I'd do the exact same thing you said, and he gave me the old finger wag and said, "No, you're not. It's kids only." And I said, "All right, I guess I'll just come watch you."
But it's gonna be a ton of fun. We're gonna live stream the event. We're gonna have a bunch of guest casters, and we're just going to be having a good old time. So we know there's a couple other content creators out there doing some kids events. We always love seeing the younger folks get into the game, and one day they'll all be whooping our butts at set champs.
They already are.
Honestly. I know they are. It's really sad. Let me have my moment, Brad. One day in the future, maybe they'll be good enough to beat us.
Maybe sit out the scar playmats, because any one of the hand kids can beat me any given day. So as long as I avoid them in the scar set championships, I'll be feeling pretty good.
But that's not the only live stream we've got coming up. We're also doing an event on January 5th where we're live streaming what's the official title? Have we settled on the official title?
No, we just still have a working title that is basically all the words I can throw together in a run-on sentence. Which Vince doesn't like those working titles. They're too long, he says.
Let's hear it. What is it?
Currently, it is a 1K at least event in prizing. We've got I think 2 cases of product in the pool, and then we also have a number of really awesome donated prizes. For everyone who's participating has a chance to win those as well.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, Brad, the tentative title right now is the event formerly known as a Second Chance Mirabelle event with the special prizing from
It just keeps going. Yeah.
Ryan Miller, the signed Mickey tournament with additional prizing provided by Grapes Games.
Yeah.
That's the working title. So this is why I was like, we need something a little snappier and catchier. But I am pretty excited about live streaming again. I really enjoy both of those live streaming, and I'm really happy that we're getting additional folks in to do it as well.
Yeah, we've got a number of really good folks in the St. Louis area as well. One of our buddies and teammate is headed to Continentals, I think the week after this event. So I know he'll be there practicing and getting some reps in. And we've got one guy in the area who is already qualified for Continentals and may also be participating in the event. So lots of really good competitive gameplay.
I'm indifferent about our teammate, how well he does. I'm just kidding.
Why is that?
we've got Ron and I have a rivalry going for an internal rivalry. So it would not be appropriate if I didn't take this opportunity to give him a little trouble. But yes, of course, I am rooting for him, especially as he goes to the Second Chance qualifier in California, which I think is a great kind of segue into an event that was just announced, which is the first Disney Lorcana Challenge event outside of continental Europe and outside of the continental North America, if you will, in Melbourne, down under, if you will. So it'll be in February of 2025, and then the top 2 will get to go. We'll get a qualifier to Worlds. So kind of a brand new event that just popped up on the calendar, and I think that's great. What do you guys have any?
Are you going?
It's a long flight.
It's a long flight. It's like 22 hours. It's insane.
It's a long flight. I had a buddy of mine who was who did a study abroad there, and he wanted me to come visit. And I was like, do you know how expensive plane tickets are to Australia from the United States?
And I've seen Lost, and I'm a big fan of Lost, and I don't really want to live it,
They have to go to the east, right? Because they can't fly over the ocean. Or
I thought you could fly from LA.
We go.
Yeah, you fly from LA. Yeah, you fly from LA, or
20
I think
hours. It's like 20 hours though. Right?
The longest I think flight from the United States is probably from Houston. I think you can fly from Houston to, which is also another common way to go. I don't know.
We're just making stuff up.
Well, if you're headed to the Melbourne DLC to try and get one of those 2 tickets, which it is really interesting that this is the first event now where they know ahead of time that they're getting this qualification to Worlds.
That's right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of some of the more top players look to go to this event to try and secure a spot at Worlds and skip the continental qualification altogether.
Because this is essentially a continental in a way, except for you're doing a DLC, and if you end up in the top 2 of that event, you get an auto qualifier. So this is really kind of, like you said, skipping a step, and you don't even have to, you just have to get to that final table, which, sounds easier than it really is. Still a very difficult thing, and those players will definitely still deserve. But you're right. I didn't think about the fact that even folks who may have gone to these the Continentals and didn't qualify may look to go to Melbourne to try to do get that opportunity. So it may be actually a fairly more competitive DLC than some of the ones that have been in the past.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how many people actually go over there. I didn't really think about it, but
I guarantee you as many as they will allow in the building for certain. However many tickets they're selling out.
I was going to say, do they have a cap? Have they announced what the cap is yet? Is it 1,000, 2,000?
No, I don't see any.
Are there 2,000 people in Australia, like in the whole continent or whatever? Like they're all pretty spread out, right? It's like a little island now.
Yeah, small island, just a small one.
For a second, I was like, "Is he serious?"
Mostly like dingoes, right? And kangaroos.
Kangaroos, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Tickets are probably already sold out because it looks like they were supposed to go on sale on the 16th of December. So
interesting. Well, good luck to everybody.
Yeah,
so that's a lot of money to go over there and be disappointed again. For me personally.
I mean, if I went, it would be to go see Australia, not to go to.
For sure, this would just be like the first stop of multiple.
Yeah.
If I were to go out there, but
I've already
not on a month's notice.
I already got a lot planned, and I probably already missed my opportunity. And honestly, I'm just excited for when eventually we all go to Japan. So that's gonna be fun.
That would be cool.
Next up, though, we have the Village Showdown, which we've been talking quite a lot about, and then we didn't say anything about it, and we finally did the first event tonight.
Yeah,
just prior to this podcast, we did our first one, which will hopefully come out sometime over the holiday. We still got to do some commentating over it and make it presentable for folks to listen to. But we're really excited, and we hope you come watch. I just have to say, though, right now, Brad, the mayor, has quite a lot of support. He has way more support than I do. And I just want to say, it hurts my feelings, y'all. It just hurts my feelings. Okay? Listen, I may be a villain here, but I'm just a sensitive guy. Okay.
I think the polls would show that our audience majority doesn't care, Vince. They're on Team Brad. Okay, so you can't.
I thought you meant about the whole thing in general.
No, that may be true.
What a subversion there!
He's just coming for my throat here. I don't love it. See.
No, it was a lot of fun. Can we talk about what it was?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think we
can. What the whole thing is in general was we agreed weeks back that me and Vince were going to show down for an extra Ursula's return set championship second place mat, right? And the card. We have one extra of each, and each one of us want both of them, but they're both up for stakes. Winner's going to get to pick what they want. And what we decided to do in the first round was have a 2-pack battle, a pack rush is what they call it now, and had a great time doing that tonight. I can't wait to share it with you. In the future, I think that we've agreed to some matches, I think with every color. Like we're going to make 3 decks, right? That was one of the ideas of matching the colors of. Ultimately, you're going to play 3 games with every color. So that's not described accurately. All 6 colors are going to be used in those 3 games is how I should have said it.
And we're doing a monocolor tournament as well. We'll throw that in there.
Are we? Yes. Yeah, I mean, we probably still take ideas. It's taken us this long to do the first round of this whole thing, but I'm just excited that it's finally kicked off and we got time to do it and provide that content to you guys. And hopefully it's enjoyable because we had a lot of fun recording it tonight.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of rounds. We got a lot of ideas. We're going to do starter decks. But it ultimately doesn't matter because it's all going to come down to a constructed battle between Brad and me for the final round. So I'm just saying, you can all be on Team Brad for now, but I'm just saying right now, points don't really matter because that final tournament is what is going to determine it all.
Look, Vince, first off, you're not supposed to tell them that, okay? Don't you know how game shows work or whatever? We don't tell them that the last round is worth 1,000 points until after they've gotten hyped up about the 10 points you guys have been earning for every previous round, okay? That's how this works, Vince. You're not supposed. Okay. And
well,
cut.
you can edit
right.
that out
So
later.
So anyway, yeah, no, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. There will be a big constructed showdown in the end because ultimately, these are cool prizes that these guys are playing for, and I don't think we want it to be left up to some of the more fun but less skillful, if you will, game types. But join us for a lot of fun. The Pack Rush episode will be coming out soon, followed by, I don't know, let us know what you want to see. We got multiplayer, we got starter battle, we've got monocolor, we've got Brad's allowed to play anything that doesn't have Mufasa in it. We've got,
how dare you?
We've got all kinds of ideas floating around. We'd love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah. Well, with that, we'll move right into your questions with Constituents Corner with the Mayor. Kick it over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vince. Our first question tonight comes from Lo. He says, at the beginning, or at the time of recording the podcast, which deck do you think is the strongest right now, and why? I assume he means which color combination. And if you'd like, I'll start. I think Amber Steel had a great showing this past weekend, and that is something a lot of people are looking at right now. It's always been a prevalent deck in the game, and right now we touched on it last episode with the different ways you can play it now. It's not always Steel Song. I think it's a force to be reckoned with, and that would be my pick.
I think if you're not Amethyst, you're not right. So I have been testing a lot of them. I do currently think that Ruby Amethyst, our Old Faithful, may in fact actually be the best deck in the format currently. Brawl, I think, is the best way to deal with Genie, the most efficient way, which feels really weird to say given how inefficient Brawl is in general. But yeah, I'd have to say Ruby Amethyst.
Do you say that even though, I mean, just a few weeks ago, you were really hot on Emerald Amethyst? Do you think Ruby Amethyst has unseated the Emerald Amethyst deck?
I think Emerald Amethyst doesn't go fast enough. And the Go-Go is a great threat. And I think Emerald Amethyst still has legs for sure. It's definitely a contender. I just think that in a meta where you can expect to see a lot of Amethyst and a lot of the matches around, revolving around this Genie battle, I think, Emerald Amethyst goes the fastest. Amethyst Steel can go fast, but has a little bit of control in it. And then Ruby Amethyst can go fast, but has the most control in it. And when you look at Emerald Amethyst, there's really no answer to a wide board. They're just, we can talk about maybe putting Under the Sea in the list, but really, you can never push that button like a Be Prepared that you would get in Ruby. So I think some of those tools are kind of necessary in the meta, but I'm definitely still in the process of testing. Still got Emerald Amethyst sleeved up.
Sure.
I'm on the Moyen train, and I'll just say Ruby Sapphire.
Ruby Sapphire still
is the deck. The only challenge I think with Ruby Sapphire is it is in some formats it has its disadvantage. So I think like the last chance qualifier, just given the nature of timings and rounds, it's probably not going to be the best.
We lost Vince there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh.
Given the last chance qualifier timing and round.
Given I think maybe it's probably not the best for that format, but I think overall it's still probably one of the stronger decks in the game. And it also has that card Maui Half Shark. I'm just
yeah. Have you been testing Ruby Sapphire, Vince?
I haven't. I have gone back to my Ruby Amethyst deck, and I also have a Sapphire Steel because I thought maybe that might be the hotness, if you will, for Azurite Sea. It's okay. I don't think it's as good as I would like it to be. I still think Ruby Amethyst is the better deck. But way better deck. Not even really comparison. I want to try some other decks, but I think we might talk about that in our next question.
Yeah, Martin Karp asked, do you have any lists from CCS that you're going to test? And I'll take this one again from the start. I'm been playing with the Steel Fossa, of course, as anybody who's listened to this podcast knows. I'm a big Mufasa stan. When there's an opportunity to make a deck with him, this is the first iteration of Mufasa that I haven't played. I've played him with every color but Steel. And I thought it was really interesting, Andy, you just said in the last question regarding Ruby Amethyst. Me and Vince tried that out on Monday. Granted, this is a 2-game example. I mean, there's plenty more to testing to do, but this deck pretty much wiped the floor. Unfortunately, sorry, Vince, with Vince's Ruby Amethyst. It had everything it needed to be quick at the beginning and then just take control in the middle with the Zeuses and everything to control his board, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm having a lot of trouble in the mirrors right now, but yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm hard testing. I fell off of Steel Song into this Mufasa deck and having a great time with it. What about you guys?
I don't see how Mufasa makes that list better, but I do think Steel Song is really strong.
I will tell you, and it won't happen all the time. In fact, it'll probably rarely happen because I'm only running 3 of her. But the Mufasa into a Big Cindy is killer. Absolutely. I did it back to back on Ron later. I did lose the matches to this red-blue, his Ruby Sapphire. But when Mufasa goes and that Big Cindy comes out, they don't have the answer for that for a couple turns.
Right, that's turn 6 at best. Into turn 7, you're now getting this Cinderella that they could potentially even banish if they already have something on the board. Whereas you could have just shifted the Big Cindy on your own on turn 5 instead of playing the Mufasa, and now you've got a Big Cindy instead of a Mufasa. It's like saying, like, would you want a Big Cindy or Mufasa? And you're like, well, the Mufasa could be anything. I mean, it could even be a Big Cindy. Like, it's like you could just already have Big Cindy.
We could, but it's coming off the deck instead of your hand. And and on that turn, I think each time that Mufasa went was when Medusa was played. So his 6 ink is already spent. That Cindy is safe. There's nothing else on that board at that time that's going to take care of her until maybe the very next turn if he wants to be prepared, if he has a Tremaine or something to take care of it. But she wasn't the only thing even on the board. And again, hyper specific example, right. But it felt really good, and I was really impressed by it. Even though that I ended up losing that game, I made a really fatal mistake. We don't have to get into that, but
what were you playing against?
Ron's Ruby Sapphire when that happened, and then in the mirror, I don't think it happened in the mirror match. His Steel Song, he's the OG Steel Song player, I think. Here, we bonded over him kicking my butt with Steel Song every day, every week in set 1, right? So whenever I have the mirror match with him, I get in a position where I'm feeling good, and then Ron just takes over because he just knows the tempo and everything of that, and I don't. I'm relatively new to playing that. I was playing Karsten's last couple weeks ago, and now I'm playing the Steel Fossa that I got to learn the lines, what I should do in certain scenarios, and immediately I was finding myself on Monday night like, well, it might have made more sense to play Smee here instead of Calhoun to get that early lore, for specific reasons that I don't remember, but constantly taking in that information and trying to determine how to move forward with this deck in the future, what changes to make and how to play those. But that's my long-winded answer for that is the deck that I'm playing from CCS right now.
Yeah, so I'm actually really interested in the blue steel quill and wheel deck that was built here. It seems like it's maybe a little bit lower to the ground. Deck has some interesting answers here to like deal with some of those larger, threats with the inclusion of Hades. I don't know. I'm just and it seems like it has a little bit more consistent ramp than I'm running.
Wow, they're running Flint.
So
Flint doesn't make any sense. What is the Flint? What is the Flint
During
target?
the turn, this character gains evasive. So
yeah, I think it's an evasive.
Right,
but it doesn't take care of Genie.
Right. Yeah. So
interesting.
It is a really interesting one. The Twin Fire is not bad. I hate having to discard out of your hand, but a 2-cost answer to Genie would be really nice. Or it's another character, right? Another chosen character, so it can't do it to the same character, which actually makes me less fond of Twin Fire now.
It's running the Simba shift package too with the Son of Mufasa.
Yeah, so interesting deck that I kind of want to give a try, and maybe I won't use the entire combination, but it's kind of an interesting, because I look at my deck and I'm not running Ariel in there.
Why?
Ariel's really good.
Ariel and Blue Steel is almost a must because you're probably running 8 popsicles, right? 4 popsicles, 4 Fortispheres.
Well,
you're always gonna have item advantage in Blue Steel.
And if you're running Wheel, you also want to be running Fishbone, so that's another set of items plus Dime.
Yeah, I am running Wheel, but I'm running. I think I have 4 Visions of the Future, and this is only running 2, which is probably better. I think because again, you don't really need as many visions, and when the game is moving a little bit faster, except for when you're wanting to try to find an answer. Interesting that this one's only playing 3 Fortispheres instead of. I'd probably drop down to 3 Fishbones and play 4 Fortispheres and 4 Popsicles.
They were really weird lists that may have had something to do with like their read on the meta or something that we just aren't understanding, because that Flintheart Glomgold doesn't seem like it's really doing anything in the current meta. And honestly, the Simba and the Simba shift package, like the big Simba is not a bad card for getting rid of items or locations. I'm sure we'll touch on it more later in the episode, but Ruby Sapphire and the McDuck Manor are definitely making a comeback for sure.
Yeah, I haven't thought about McDuck Manor. I think that's definitely probably something if you're playing in Sapphire. Maybe with the exception of Ruby Sapphire, maybe you don't play it. But
no, Ruby Sapphire is where you do play it. That's what they've been doing now. So Ruby Sapphire runs Flynn Sisu McDuck Manor. It runs the Flynn Sisu package in there.
Wow.
And that it's for the mirror match. So it beats the mirror, and it gets in the manor sticks around after Be Prepareds. So you just do the same kind of thing Ruby Amethyst was doing for the past couple of metas, where you play like the castle, and then you just Be Prep, and then one-off removal like Medusa Tremaines and stuff to get rid of all of their stuff that they try and put out to try and get rid of your manors, and then you just get that passive lore until you win the game.
It's definitely, if we look at the second place deck here, we don't see the manor being played in that one. So
yeah, I think there's also the argument that this is a much smaller, less competitive tournament than like Continentals, where I think there was a large emergence of that. And I mean, if we want to talk smaller tournaments, I played in an 8-person tournament over the weekend where I got second place, and the guy that beat me, shout out Mitchell, great player. He was running a very interesting Ruby Sapphire that did have the Flynn Sisu Manor combo, and I had to like double crab bounce, play the crab again. I ended up like triple crabbing and a bounce, and had to swing like a genie to take out like 2 manors in one turn or something like that. It was pretty brutal.
Sheesh.
So it's definitely a good card.
Yeah.
But I think the Blue Steel list we're talking about here, I don't understand the Simba or the Twin Fire really. The little Simba, you don't want to be discarding the cards out of your hand.
I don't know. I think the Twin Fires is an interesting precision.
It's
I
two separate
agree.
targets, though. So you're really only ever doing 2 damage to one target, which again isn't as useful.
I
or
don't know. I'll be
whatever.
honest with you. There have been times like that would have been good, against the match against Brad to be able to, prevent, the Cindy shift line for him, which he was able to successfully make.
I mean, at worst, it is a baboom, right? It is just an uninkable baboom.
Yeah.
Which
The only
terrible. Yeah.
the only downside, and it's because partly this is just because in our area, I don't think the steel song has been as prevalent for a while. It's just the reminder that as that comes, it's like having a damaged character, and then they bring down Rapunzel and heal, draw cards, and that was like, I think Brad did that in one of the games we played.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I always forget about these kind of different lines.
I was holding on to her for so long, and then you finally gave me that opportunity. And
well, I ruined it one time though by taking out the Smee because you were planning on healing the Smee.
Yep.
But it's one of those things that as the meta adapts, I think you got to think about creative ways to go. But Andy, what's your answer to this question?
Well, there wasn't any list of the CCS that I was too particular on. I did look at DeCandio's first place list. It's relatively similar to his LC3 list that he had. The Dwarf Mine package, I've heard a lot of things about that package in the steel package there with like the Happy and the Dock and the mine Seven Dwarves mine, the location.
Yep.
I think it's interesting. It kind of is just an aggro deck, though, at heart, and
it's unique.
It is an interesting way to play it, but I think the CCS tournament was very heavily filled with a lot of Amber Steel, which I think we'll see a lot of. There was a lot of that at Continentals as well. It is a very, very strong aggro, sort of mid-rangey-ish, depending on how you play it. And I think we touched on it last podcast that it can be built in many different ways. So lots of options.
Yeah, it's wild. It's always been song heavy and just steel song. You play aerial, get your songs, control the board, shift into or wheel into a whole new hand, and then now we're seeing these variations of it that are being successful, which is in a way is great. It so gives people more incentive to play these colors if they don't like the song mechanic or tired of digging for songs, and I like it. The version I'm playing, we'll talk about a little bit more later. It's so much fun, or maybe we won't. I don't know. We talked a lot about it just now.
But, yeah. Well, what's our next question?
Next question comes from Megan Zelda in the Discord. She asks, the next Lorecast is probably coming up soon, as we all suspect. What kind of news would you like to hear from Ravensburger?
Yeah, it's kind of weird that we haven't had it. It makes me wonder whether or not they're skipping it for some reason or what. I don't know.
They're away on the holidays.
Yeah. I would assume it's a holiday thing. Sorry to cut you off. Thought I had an opening there. But also, the EU Continentals got a lot of announcements. We got the new chapter or the new set announcements and such. That part of me thinks that the NA Continentals is going to get some big announcements too. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think that it would be weird to have the Lorecast before it. If they do, it would be probably the week before it, between the 6th and the 10th, when that week, or if not, it would be after. But this is the window where it should be happening, but the holidays puts a damper on that as well. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect after the set announcements, because that's usually what they do on the Lorecast, is show us the new set, some cards from it, which we can all expect now that we know what the set is. But I don't even know when it's going to be, just based on the timing.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's why I said I don't know. It may just be something that they're changing up. Maybe they found, that's a lot of work to do it all, and they want to devote that work to other things. They're a small team still, right? Like,
sure.
There's a lot of folks that put this together, and they're having to travel to these continental events, and maybe they figure with these 2 continentals and with Worlds coming up that they can kind of pack some of the same information into those events. And so I think we'll probably see card reveals from those sets at at the NA Continentals.
Yeah.
But I'm unsure if we're gonna get an official lore cast in the way that we did for previous sets for the starting.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do it.
If you want Ravensburger, mail us the big cards. We'll you know what? We won't even do this remote nonsense. We'll all get in the same room together. So you only need to set us one set of big cards. It's cool. We'll we'll set them up. I think Brad does a really good Ryan Miller impression. So
just send Ryan. I'd love to hang out with him again.
Yeah, you can send him over too.
Yeah.
What's interesting, thinking about the EU though, they announced the set. They announced the sleeves and the deck box and the gift set. Or the I guess it's the gift set, the Lilo alternate art and all that stuff. That's all the stuff that they would do on the lorecast. So I don't know. We got to get our reveals. Part of me wonders if the big thing for NA or the lorecast is going to be a new mechanic, because they announced with Arcasia's Island that new tricks, was the subtitle or something, which might just be a play at the the pets and the animals that seem to be very much taking over this set. Bring in Jock, please. I mean, that's got to be it, right? The mechanic. If it is a new mechanic, what is it going to be? And then going into details and showing some cards that demonstrate that.
Yeah. I think, though, if I were to answer this question, though, like, what do I want to hear, whether it be in a lorecast or from Ravensburger, is I want to hear, obviously we haven't finished this set of, run through the DLCs and Worlds, but I want to hear what's next. Like, what is their plan going forward? And, at least laying those the groundwork for what we should expect, like hopefully more events.
Yeah,
definitely.
Big lore drop.
Yeah. Anything else, or we can move on to the next question, which seems like it's a combo question, huh?
It is a combo question, and it kind of worked in each other's favor. Heather asked initially a 2-part question. She said, why on earth is Half Shark a 6-cost inkable, and how prevalent is power creep at this point in Lorcana? And she demonstrated the Lady Tremaine from set 1, who's a 1/6 uninkable, and when you play her, you can pull a card from your discard to your hand. In contrast to Maui Half Shark, who is a 6-cost inkable, 7/5, I think. I don't have him directly in front of me at the moment. I should, but he does the same thing when he challenges. Pull a card from your discard, and you get a lore just for playing playing an action that turn, for any action you play that turn. So in regards to her question, Cody followed up asking, "What exactly is power creep to somebody who's new to TCGs?" And I wanted to kind of combine those questions, and he had a couple follow-up questions that we can touch on as well. But I thought maybe I'd kick it over to Andy to kind of give some examples of power creep, what that means, and why games do that.
Yeah, definitely. First off, power creep is just essentially cards getting better than old cards. As new cards come out, they get better than previous cards. Honestly, if they didn't, you wouldn't buy them, right? We wouldn't buy them if... I think there are other TCGs out there where new sets come out and they analyze all the cards. Everyone looks at all the cards as they're revealed, and then they just say, nah, I don't want any of those. They're not good. They don't help my deck. They don't help me beat any of the decks. Like, I don't want them. And, they sell really poorly. And, so power creep is kind of just a natural progression that happens in card games. I do want to touch on Heather's. One, Half Shark is a 6-cost inkable card because it's not as great as you think it is. I personally am not
wrong.
I am not on this Maui Half Shark bandwagon. If we're talking about art, it's
wrong.
Great art.
That's a great art. Probably the best art in the set. Yeah,
definitely.
Well,
really cool card. Is it power crept over the green Lady Tremaine? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it is it 1-to-1 like power crap? Like I think we saw. I'm not going to remember the names of the cards, but there's a card in like set 1 that's like pay 3, give a character reckless until the end of till the start of your next turn. And now there's like a set 5 card that says pay 3, give a character reckless until the start of your next turn, draw a card. Same cost, same ink ability, same color, same action, type. It does everything except it draws a card. That is a 1-to-1 power crept. There's no argument. It's better. So that other card just gets thrown away.
Yeah. The example that I used.
This Tremaine is different, right? It is definitely seems a lot worse, but it's a different color, a color that doesn't necessarily have access to a lot of the things maybe a different color would have. And a big thing is it's got an ETB. Lady Tremaine guarantees you a card back from your discard. Maui Shark does not, right? I've heard recently people talking about Mother Knows Best, right? Bouncing Maui Shark back to your hand. That basically is a dead turn for the Maui Shark player because they play that card, it gets bounced back, and then they play it again, and it's a waste of that 6 ink. They get nothing for it until it sticks on the board and does something. And if you'll notice, a lot of the best cards and the cards that get played are only cards that have a high probability of surviving to do their thing that they want, or things or cards that don't need to survive to do their thing. They do their thing when they show up, So I think Maui Shark is definitely power crept, but I think personally we have a good bit more to go before we start seeing like that kind of power creep where you read the card and you're like, oh, okay, like this is getting out of control. We're still struggling with a lot of the same, wish.com removal tools that we've got.
I think that's the important point here is that I don't think there are a ton of really great examples of power creep in Lorcana. There are, don't get me wrong, I think there are examples that exist. But as Andy really points out, is that what seems like power creep isn't, because there's a lot of identity within each ink color that's important to understand. So, if you were comparing this to another card in Ruby, like if it like that was a Tremaine card, but it was in Ruby, you'd be like, okay, yeah, this is pretty clearly power creep. But the fact that it's in another card that it kind of gives it a different ability, and just because it's not played like that Tremaine we haven't seen that played in a very long time.
Ever, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine, probably somebody who really loves Emerald in the first set might have played that card.
For Mill. Yeah, you play
I
Emerald
never did.
Steel. You play Emerald Steel and you try and grab back your whole new worlds and mill your opponent. An excuse to play more than 60 cards. It's Vince's favorite deck.
But yeah, I just think it's important to understand that each ink color has its own identity, and if there's something that's going to be outside of its identity, they're going to do that in the game. They're going to make it more expensive than it might be in another card, or harder to play, right? Because ultimately, you'll hear this, I think, on particularly like Podcana, they talk about this a lot, that like one of the struggles I think a lot of games have, and Lorcana will probably have as the card pool increases, is making sure that you keep different ink types unique enough and they don't kind of blend together and meld, so that it's like, oh, well, why would I choose, Sapphire or Ruby or Amethyst or whatever and stuff. It's like you choose all of these because they have certain different identities, whether it be, you've got card draw with Amethyst, you've got removal with Ruby, and I'm overgeneralizing with what those ink combinations do, but they've all kind of got their place, and you build decks and pair them with other ink colors to build a larger, more comprehensive deck that gets you to do whatever it is, whether, it be a control, a mid-range deck, you need different ink combinations to kind of get there. And stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I would agree that I don't think this is an example of power creep, but I do appreciate your explanation about that. I think we have a little bit of time to dig into Cody's question too.
Yeah, for his full question was for new TCG players, what is power creep and what makes Rabbit any less than Genie? Should they errata Rabbit to be inkable? No. And to increase its value a bit, would we see a more mixed bag of amethyst infused decks? And I think Andy touched on this quite a bit with, just the into the board effects and everything. And in regards to Rabbit, he comes in, you're guaranteed 2 cards. And the reason why, and we've touched on it, I think last week, Genie was our villain of the week, where he came in and he did a number of things where, he does the same thing as Rabbit with the exception of the second draw, but now they gave him evasive and they gave him a bigger
Extra
body.
lore.
Yeah, and extra lore. That's where I was actually leaning toward. I lost my thought there for a split second. So it makes your deck a little bit faster, and then they have to answer that evasive target when as John Lowe from our Discord would say, in any game that you ever played him, you see a rabbit, you kill a rabbit because with that bounce package, you could just bounce that rabbit over and over again, so that you're getting 2 cards every time you play that rabbit, essentially. So the Genie comes out, he's a one-timer unless you bounce him and want to pay that 4 ink again. But it's a weird I don't know, example to use, right? Because it's not really power creep in the sense that like it takes away a little bit as well with that draw, which is always powerful. But
we also kind of answered this when we were talking about Genie as being, the villain of the week. But I would just say, one, I agree, you don't need to errata Rabbit to make him inkable. For one, if he were
make him
inkable,
3 cost and inkable.
If you were, no, I was gonna say, but if you made Rabbit inkable and you inked Rabbit, you're playing Rabbit wrong.
Very true.
I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to make him inkable, I guess, unless you really, really need the ink. But then I don't know.
The example I wanted to give Cody as well when he asked this question was, it's a really simple one, is that in set 1 they had an action called Tangle with Flynn Rider wrapped up in Rapunzel's hair. You play it for 2 cost inkable and the opponent loses a lore. This set we have Thievery, which is a 1 cost inkable. The opponent loses a lore and you gain a lore. So unless you're playing like a themed deck or a very hyper aggressive lore losing deck, like you have no reason to ever play Tangle again, because Thief swings the game. Or Thievery swings that lore swing is so much bigger and costs 1 less. And that's the example that I immediately came up with when he asked about the power creep.
Thievery is 1 opponent. The other is each opponent.
Oh.
So
right, well.
Multiplayer. Tangle has more multiplayer aspect. But I think
fair.
the Genie versus Rabbit thing, you're trading that 1 extra card for that chance at extra lore, for that threat of additional lore, which isn't necessarily a binary decision, right? Like it depends on the other cards you put in your list, right? If you weren't playing cards like Chernobogs and Brooms and the new Diablo now, even, then you wouldn't necessarily have the draw power to be able to not play as many of the rabbits as opposed to genies. You didn't have cards like Friends on the other side. So when you have to make these deck building decisions to say, do I have enough card draw throughout the course of the game to keep my hand healthy? And if so, can I afford these uninkable slots with something that threatens my goal of 20 lore, and ask the question to my opponent, can you answer this Genie? Rather than, because I'm sure we've all been there before, where you have a lot of cards in your hand, you have a really healthy hand, but you don't have you don't have enough turns, you don't have enough ink, you just can't win the game or stop your opponent from winning the game, and it's like, well, all of these cards didn't really help me, right? So sometimes there is the need in that deck building to say, I need something that asks the question and demands an answer, which is what Genie does, and it's why the meta has sort of warped around him to try and answer that.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
Nothing for me.
All right, then we'll wrap up Constituents Corner. If you'd like your questions answered by the villains in the future, be sure to comment on this video on YouTube, our socials, or join us on our Discord where you can comment in the Constituents Corner channel. And I'll kick it back to you, Vince.
Thanks, Brad. Now to our main segment. Talk a little bit more about the developing Azurite C meta. Or I guess we should say we're like, a month in now, a month and a half in, not quite a month and a half in I guess we are about a month and a half in. Man, having a rough time with the English language today and time. But, so I am curious. Well, how do you guys feel about the meta now? I'll start off with you, Andy.
I think it's really nice, honestly. I think it's probably one of the most diverse metas, if not the most diverse meta we've ever had, which arguably I think that's kind of what Ravensburger is going for, right? They want the meta to become more and more diverse as the game goes on. So it only makes sense that it's getting more diverse. I do think it is really interesting as you counted the scratches on your wall to find out how many days since the last set until the next set, etc. It is really odd the timing and pacing of some of these sets. When we were in the DLC season, we almost didn't even really notice it, but sets would go by at different rates. If a DLC was happening 2 weeks after the set was released, the meta developed insanely fast and everyone sort of rushed in, and then it kind of got set for the next DLC that was in the same one and for set championships and stuff. Whereas I think with this meta, we're seeing it develop a lot slower. There's not all these DLCs. There's these 2 continental events, which are great for the meta. But then even after that, we still are then a couple weeks from set champs. We've got over a month now before set champs still. So I feel like we're still a ways away from needing to necessarily solve the meta. But at the same time, some of the best players are out there currently solving the meta for these continentals. So
yeah. So let me pull on that thread a little bit. So why, and maybe I'll start with you, Brad. What cards do you think Azurite C has brought into the game that has allowed more diverse decks to be played?
That's a good question. It's easy to say Genie. Genie's been the talk of the town for the last couple of weeks. I've been saying here, at least locally, I'm only speaking from my very limited experience, despite how much Lorcana happens here in St. Louis. I haven't seen the Bird in so long, and he has dominated, the last couple DLCs. And I think,
the Bird. Ban the Bird.
I was never on the ban the Bird train. Yeah. But I feel like Genie coming in, being evasive, and just more evasive answers is limited. That maybe people have just decided that deck's just not fun anymore. But also, as Andy's pointed out in the last couple of weeks that we've mentioned, that is that it didn't get a whole lot either. When Zan had a few days to put something together for the LCCs, that's happening right now. He only added 1 Pluto card because he knew this deck as good as it was. There's nothing in here that interests me, nothing in here that I see changing, which may have changed right now. We'll find out tomorrow, or I guess yesterday when you're listening to this. He has his next match with Artabax. Maybe he's updated it, and we'll see what those cards are that's made Emerald Steel discard even better now, and he's had more time to practice with it. But the ones that come immediately to mind are the ones that we've already talked about. Is the Genie, the Alice, I think, is a lot of fun if you can work her in. I've been playing her in Blurple again. Go-Go and Calhoun. Calhoun has made Emerald or Amber Steel more than just a Steel Song deck, as we alluded to a little bit ago, where a lot of the Steel songs that we've seen Bivens and other people playing, or Steel songs, Amber Steels, have been more low to the ground aggro related with a lot less songs, maybe not even aerial. And so those kind of cards that present an early threat with lore gain. She's just a mini Robin Hood, right? That it kind of helps define, okay, maybe we can do this with these colors now. And
so are they now updating the decks in the
yes
content? Okay,
yeah, they I think they're in the top cut now, and Bivens played yesterday against DKP, and he was on an Amethyst Steel, and it looked good, man. That Pete, that Pete just shut down DKP for both games. Like just Pete repeat over and over again, and you can't do anything.
Well, I'll tell you another card I think you kind of like glazed over a bit that I think is a card that actually really does help your Amber Steel deck is that Pluto. And Bodyguard and stuff. It's like, because again, as Andy will know, and you both know, it's like I just have to remind myself that is not
challenging.
Yep.
It is just pure strength. He's a good boy.
Pure strength until you get damage on that card. Man, it's a rough thing to deal with, especially in decks where you don't have like indirect damage that you can, deal to it. So, but yeah, I'll ask the same question to you, Andy.
What was the question again?
Yeah, no, right. Is like, what cards do you think have brought in to the meta that have really made from Azurite Sea that have really developed this?
I mean, a lot of them. The ones Brad mentioned, we're probably just reading off like our set list for the villain of the week for the next like 2 months here. But we've got like Lilo, new Amber Steel, the new Amber card, Lilo. The recursion from your discard later in the game is at worst annoying to your opponent, but at best it is incredibly oppressive to your opponent. You know how like mentally draining it is to have to banish the same Lilo like 5 turns in a row, and then your Elsa just is gone as well, and you're like, well, that cost them 2 ink a turn, and it's frustrating. So Lilo is really good. Maui Half Shark is bad, but people will say it's good. No, it's a good card. All the ones he mentioned, the Calhoun. We also saw the Dwarven Mine was last set, wasn't it?
That's not
a new card for this set. That is a card that you're talking about indirect ping damage. That card is a hot topic in discussion here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Zan playing that package in his green steel going forward. I think that's what he was telling Moyen was his secret sauce.
I am both disappointed in both of you for not mentioning Gantu. All hail.
Gantu.
He's in my deck.
Is very good.
Yeah, he is good. He's very good. All hail.
He's a little too vanilla, I think. I think that's part of the problem that people are getting cold on Gantu is, like I said about Maui Half Shark, they don't have an enter the battlefield effect. They don't do anything unless they survive, and it's just you need to do more than threaten something. You need to like do something that is also threatening.
Yeah, and what's the worst thing about my Gantu experience in my Steel Fossa deck right now is, I shouldn't say my deck, the deck that I net decked from the CCS tournament. Monday night I'm playing against Ron, and I know from his Half Shark that he brought Let It Go back to his hand, and I could threaten lethal with playing my Gantu, but I know immediately that Gantu is going to my Inkwell, right? So I ended up playing a play where I played Doc instead. I inked Gantu, or maybe I discarded Gantu by playing Doc. Drew 2 cards, got another Gantu, and forced the... I don't know why I went off on that tangent. You talked about Gantu, and I'm like, yeah, 4 lore is great. It can win you the game, but it sucks even worse when they have the answer in their hand to take care of it, right? Because there's no inch of the board, as Andy said. I was going to joke that you should play the 8 cost then, so that he's got he actually has an effect, but no, don't do that.
I think a card like Baymax is another card that also exists in the meta and is somewhat relevant. I think even just Go-Go in general, the idea of having to like account for Go-Go in the meta is like adds an additional dynamic sort of to the game. I think they were the guest on Podcana recently. They qualified for Worlds. LD, Lorcana Deck Lists, I believe was their name. And and they basically said that the one thing that Gogo did the most the whole time they played him was make their opponent think a lot longer. He said it made their opponent's turn take way longer because they had to do all kinds of math on this Go-Go stuff. And so even just one card, like in the meta, I think is really
so
nice.
What you're telling me, Andy, is anytime I play Brad, I should play Go-Go. And then the round will just end in time.
I brought this up last week or the week before. You're not wrong, because the 2 weeks ago at Bodax, we made Go-Go the villain of the week 2 weeks ago. We talked about her on Wednesday. We released on Friday. In between there, I played at Bodax at our local league, and I played against Cody's Emerald Amethyst and Brittany's Emerald Amethyst. And each game, each round of each game, it came down to the wire, and I had to do everything I could to just pray that Go-Go wasn't in their hand to close out the game, because like there was nothing I could do about it. I had to control some ways, which means there's going to be damage on my characters, and then you just have to pray. And yes, I am the guy, as you know, and everybody else here probably knows now too, or knew already, that I way overthink and I dwell in it. And then when I'm thinking that you have Go-Go, I'm like, how do I get out of this situation until I succumb to what could be my fate? And I got lucky. They didn't have him at the times that, that would have won them the game, but she's very much something that's just a brain, like, on your brain all the time and making you play around her. That's her real power.
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about the Amber Steel decks, particularly from CCS, and the deck that you're playing, Brad, mostly.
Yeah.
But Andy, you talk about how you think this is the most diverse meta. So let me ask, though, if you say this is such a diverse meta, why then were there so few meta different decks in the top 8 at the NA Continentals? Do you think there's just too early and we'll see a much more diverse meta going into the NA? I'm sorry, the EU Continentals.
Right. Well, so for one, I think the EU Continentals top 8 was fairly diverse. I mean, it had a lot of Amethyst, but if you talk about how much Amethyst was in top cuts in the previous sets, it was all Ruby Amethyst. It was Ruby Amethyst or not at all. And the fact that there was Emerald Amethyst and Amethyst Steel in the top 8 at EU Continentals, along with, old reliables like Ruby Sapphire. And while I don't think Amber Steel made top cut, I do think it was fairly well represented at the event and in day 2, the top 16 at least. Mm-hmm. And as we saw, the CCS tournament had tons of Amber Steel. But one easy argument, one easy piece of evidence for me that the meta is so diverse is that we look at these, what is it? You said 6 out of 8 Amber Steel CCS, Brad? I think that's 5. What you were saying. 5. Yep. But then you look at them, and one of them has no aerial, no whole new world, very few songs, incredibly low to the ground, and uses the Seven Dwarves Mine package. You have another one that has Mufasa of all cards, Boo-Fasa, right? And runs a whole new world, and and then you have probably other lists that are much more traditional with the aerial package and maybe a couple shift Cindy's in there, and then you add in new cards. You now have Pluto at 4 to go along with Lawrence, and your Smee is now also, you got Calhoun's to consider and Lilo's to consider. And then you have the version, like the Karsten version with the Simba package, which I think that's a really, really smart way to play that. Playing Simba and discarding a Lilo to then be able to play it out of your discard the next turn is just like, it's pretty big brain, in my opinion.
That was the first iteration you were playing, wasn't it, Brad?
It was. I was playing Karsten's with a couple changes. I threw Pluto in it, which I found out like a week later was a terrible decision, because Pluto's great, but when you're playing Simba, you don't want them both out there at the same time because Simba's going to ready the Pluto, right? So like bad synergy. Yeah. I had to take him out. But I remember when I played Karsten's version at Bodax against Andy, Lilo was annoying. Lilo got me through the red-blue matchup that I could never beat in a mirror. and then I played Andy in the final game, and he, like he said, Lilo is incredibly annoying to deal with. But the second that I got a second Lilo on the board, he's like, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with two of them. You got this, right? So
really annoying.
Yeah, that's a contender for Villain of the Week. I really like that card, and now that we're talking about Lilo, I'm like, I kind of want to put her in in this Mufasa deck that I'm running, but there's not really space for the way that it's run right now, because I see the lines of how he built this deck, but I just really like that Lilo card so much.
You should take Mufasa out of the deck, and then
no, you can't do that.
It's the Lilo Fasa deck.
Well, the 1-drops here, you got 4 Cindy's for the 11 songs in the deck. You got 4 Daisies, 2 Calhouns, 2 Docs, 2 Smees, or 4 Smees,
Daisy,
and 3 Vanessas.
Get rid of
Daisy might go. Daisy might go.
So
Maybe a
bad
couple.
In this current meta. This current meta is very, very character heavy, and Daisy Duck is just giving free draw. Might as well play Chromacon at that point, right? I mean, you can't in Amber Steel, but you're just giving a free card.
It was certainly worse in the matchup for Brad when I was playing my Ruby Amethyst deck, because basically almost every card that was coming out was a character. A little bit better for him when I was playing my Sapphire Steel deck, which is a much more item heavy deck, item and action really, but
which, by the way, Sapphire Steel is also just like Amber Steel and can be played, like you're saying, with items and Whole New World, or like you pointed out, Whole New World and Fishbone. But there's also, I think, Brad, you tested it a little bit, or I at least watched you get your butt whooped by it with the more aggro version with Tadashi and Gantu, all hail. And again, those Steel, I think, has a really, really good set of 2 different packages that do 2 different things really great. They have these great value characters that trade really well, quest really well. They're well statted, essentially. Just these great characters: Smee, Calhoun, Lawrence, Pluto, and then you've got this control, set of these songs that end up working out really great to get, and it. Not necessarily just songs, but Fire the Cannon, Smash, Boom, all this direct damage to these control tools. And then you throw in a couple of those nice extra cards in there, like a Whole New World to get you a lot of extra cards and stuff. And Steel will be very, very versatile color that essentially, paired with any other good color, kind of gets you 2 decks, right? You kind of get aggro version and then the more control-y version.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And we did talk a little bit about that, I think, a few weeks back, about the different kind of archetypes that you can build, in particular with Amber Steel. And I think you're right to some degree that exists in Sapphire Steel, especially as the meta has moved to be a lot faster. Not necessarily aggro, but just definitely the games are moving quicker, and you have to have much faster responses, or the ability to slow your opponent down, right? Either you need to keep up and play fast, or you need to have tools in your deck to control the game to slow the game down in your favor. But I don't know. I remain a little bit unconvinced that and maybe hopefully I'll be proven wrong when North America comes back. I mean, just to kind of put it in context, I was telling both Brad and Andy during a little bit of a break that, Azurite Sea, not my favorite set that's come out. And,
yet.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm just not feeling it.
I think I told you when you were talking about playing Blue Steel, and I'm glad Andy brought up Baymax earlier and Jake's Blue Steel deck, because I think I told you this already before. When I did get my butt kicked by Jake when I was playing a red Fasa deck, and he the synergy that I saw, this was really early in the set too, where I hadn't even thought about Blue Steel, but the synergy I saw between Smee and that Baymax card was incredible. So now you don't need to get the draw for Rapunzel in Amber anymore. You can get lore off of it with Baymax. Baymax is an easy brawl target, it being a 2/6. But he comes into play and you get 2 lore off of damage of one of your characters, and anytime he quests, he does too. So essentially, every time Smee quests and takes a damage, Baymax guarantees, assuming they don't answer Smee, that Baymax is going to get additional lore the next turn, or you could crash into something, survive, and take that damage off with Baymax for that lore gain. So I really like that Baymax card, and I've been trying to make him work in Blurple. I think he's still in there at the moment, but yeah, I would if I was playing Blue Steel, I would strongly consider. I would myself would do that. Would put Baymax in there for that because I just like that card.
Lawrence
is a great
Pluto.
one. Yeah.
It synergizes. It's just another, like you said, Rapunzel. It synergizes the characters Rapunzel synergizes with. Yeah, it is. But the only problem is its brawl target ability.
Yeah.
You're only getting it really reliably. You're only getting it once. So it's kind of 5 cost for like 2 lore and 2 healing, which Rapunzel is still definitely a lot better. The card draw is considerably better, but I don't understand why Vince doesn't like this meta. I think the only thing I don't like about this meta, so to speak, and it's kind of just a, my own personal problem, I guess, is just the with every new set, with as more diverse as the meta gets, it becomes harder. The game gets harder. So the preparation you have to do, the number of this idea of sitting down and saying, okay, well, like you pick your best hand for your list, and now I can say, like, all right, can I play against Emerald Steel's like best hand? Like, can I beat that nuts draw, right? Well, which Emerald Steel, right? Okay, well, which Amber Steel are you playing? Now I've got like 12 different lists that I feasibly have to be aware of. I'm actually kind of considering just basically playing color versus color and not build a list, and just sort of say, okay, on turn 1, what do I want to play? I'll play any of these. Okay, let's just pick one. Let's play Chernobog's Followers, right? Now, what can they play from any card in Amber and Steel? What's the best card they could play to now take care of what I've got here? And sort of just build your deck like that as you go through turn by turn, saying, like, if I had all the cards available to me, could I actually beat your ink color combination, or is yours just better than mine, essentially? And then, do that sort of all of the ink color combinations and try and see, where you come out. And obviously certain cards are going to be like, you're going to look at it and you're going to go, okay, well, this card is the answer, right? Like, this card helps me beat this deck every time, guaranteed. I think last set we saw Ariel, just free win against Emerald Steel because of the ward and the inability to like interact with it at all. Put the dime down and you just, they can't go fast enough with Emerald Steel. They can draw all the cards they want. You're just going to win with that Ariel in 3 turns. You'll find those cards that win it for you, but then you have to go back to the deck building and realize, okay, well, I can't really put that card in this deck because it's absolute garbage in every single other matchup that I'm in. But yeah, my only complaint with this meta is that it just got harder, and now I have to work harder, and now my head steams more when I try and think because my brain is like an old-timey steam engine.
I admire your ability to do it. Like the other night, I think Monday, I was able to sit down and make 2 decks. I wanted to make 2 casual pirate decks just to have at game night for when I have new players come. I want to have something fun to play. Most of the time I have my starter decks, which to me aren't that fun to play, but they're great teaching tools, right? But I was like, I really want to make a deck with all the poo pirates. And I did that super easily. Just throw some Moana characters, red, yellow, all the Winnie the Pooh characters. Great. And then I decided, you know what? I had so much fun building that deck, my Emerald Steel Pirate deck. I want to try to build the competitive combo Ruby Emerald deck that will. I don't want to get into details about it yet because it's really spicy, but I don't think it's there. But the point is, it was really hard to do is that I picked the 4 cards that I want to synergize to work, and I went off to Twitter. I was like, "Hey, this is what I want to do. Does people smarter than me please, help me decide what can I do to build, in regards to the meta, because I can't think on, maybe I can, but I'm just not thinking hard enough to be like, okay." I listen to you talk about like, okay, can it answer this? Can it answer that? Can it do that? And then when I get to that point that I am like just theorizing all these things, then I'm like, I don't want to build this anymore. So
It's hard.
Yeah, and the point is, is that as I started with this, is like I admire your ability to look into that, have the built-in practice with Kirsten at home to run reps, have these, because the only practice that I get when I have some stupid idea is to jump on tabletop if somebody's available and see if there's anything there. Because like the few nights a week that I get to play, do I build this, try it out, and see if it's worth anything, or do I play the decks that I know that I already like and expand on
we
those?
just need to get the Mrs. Mayor to play the game at one point in time, and I think
we'll talk about it next week.
Coming soon.
I think so too. I hope so.
But any last thoughts before we move on?
I don't think so. That was a good talk.
Now, as everybody always wants to know, who is the villain of the week? Brad?
Me? Aw. It's about time, because apologies to Gantu, we have Maui Half Shark from set 6, Azurite Sea. He is a 6-cost inkable legendary card in Ruby, Storyborn hero deity with 7 strength, 5 willpower, quests for 1 lore. He is evasive, and his ability is Chihu. Whenever this character challenges another character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand. A second ability called Wayfinding, whenever you play an action, gain 1 lore. Art by Alexandria Neonakis. I've been wanting to talk about this card for 3 weeks now. I had him set up, and we talked about another, and rightfully so. We called an audible in the middle of the episode. I have run into this card so much between the different locals that I was able to get out to, and he just burned me with all the extra lore that he gets from his actions. And if you don't have an immediate answer, granted, I was playing Blurple, so I was drawing for Hades and whatever I can to immediately get him off the board. He is a force to be reckoned with, and I don't think Andy necessarily appreciates how much he actually threatens, because I don't know that he's had enough experience against it. But maybe he just has better insight than I do.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah, take it away.
Defendant Maui the Half Shark is being unjustly accused of being overpowered, power crept, some might even say. This is blasphemous and slander, and I will have none of it. Okay.
I just want to say the judge has taken his judicial robes and they are left in his chambers because the Galactic Council has been adjourned for a little bit.
Well, I argue that the Galactic Council needs to consider hearing these arguments in the chamber. Okay, maybe not this week, but at some point, I think we may revisit this, and you will find that the Maui Half Shark is a friend, a friend. Some might even say hero to all. Okay. But
no, he comes out and he sits there, and then the Ruby Amethyst decks are running Thievery and Friends and I don't know Ruby Amethyst well enough that
Half Shark. They're running Half Shark.
The ones that were burning me that week was Ryan from our team. I could not get a win on that deck against Ryan. And then the following week, I got some practice against Ron. I went over to his house to play. He brings out that shark and he's playing Develop and Visions and all these low cost actions, and then just doing whatever he needs to do to get those back and just chime in 1 lore every time. Those develops and one ink to play those, and then just challenge whatever he can with it, heal it with a popsicle, bring that Develop back, just lore. Siphoning lore over and over and over again. And what was worse about the red deck as well is that they run Pirate's Life. So not only is Maui gaining 1 lore, then you're losing 2, they're gaining another 2 from that, and just throw lore everywhere. Take it away from me and throw it out in the streets like it's a parade. I was so tired of seeing this shark. And then I've been wanting to talk about it for a while. He's here now. I don't know how prevalent he will be in the future. I'm really curious to see in the NA Continentals what he's going to do, because he will be there. But
I think it's key. Its place, its home, is in Ruby Sapphire, because the ramp to get there, the recursion to play key kind of actions are great. I don't know that I necessarily see its value as much in the Ruby Amethyst deck. Although I guess if you're running a quote unquote the burn version, which I think is something we'll talk about some other time because I don't really think Lorcana has a burn type in the same way that most other card games have.
Instant
but that's a whole
lore.
debate.
Gotta get away from the burn. Yeah,
that's the term.
But I think maybe that's where you're gonna do a little effect over Instalore.
Instalore.
Imagination.
But yeah, it's just I think what makes this card, particularly the villain overall, is that it is in that place, in that Ruby Sapphire deck. This is a card that is going to cause you a lot of problems until you remove it. And it is a difficult card to remove.
Oh, yeah, he's evasive. Did I even say that he's evasive? I think I did. Yeah, I went to go challenge it with Fox one time, and I'm like, oh, yeah, he's freaking evasive, too. Like, just throw that on there.
Maui can take him out, though. Maui here.
Oh, yeah, Maui, yeah. We've seen Maui take out a Pegasus
evasive before. Characters. He's really good at doing that, actually, right? Sorry, inside joke.
Anyway,
Vince tried to take out a Pegasus.
You let us know your comment below. What do you think? Thank you for listening.
I think the problem with Half Shark is that he has no enter the battlefield effect, and he's expensive. So in Ruby Amethyst, the reason he doesn't work is because a lot of these other lists are essentially just going to get underneath you and win the game by the time you get your Maui Shark out there. And you put it out on turn 6, and it's like, okay, I quest for 8 more. Your turn. Like, oh, wow, you're going to attack something and then get... So, the quote-unquote instant lore version of Ruby Amethyst is nifty, but ultimately it really only works against slower lists, which there aren't too many of. Ruby Sapphire works kind of nice because it's just largely actions to begin with. Songs and actions that help them ramp, search, or remove the opponent's board. It's nice passive lore when you play those actions. I think its biggest downfall is again that you have to play them and they have to survive. I think, Brad, if you go back in time, you get in your time machine, you head back, and you just think to yourself, I need to take care of the Maui Half Sharks. Just like when you played against Diablo, you know that this card is married to the Diablo, right? I need to find a brawl, I need to fire the cannons, I need to get it in my hand, and it's there, right? You're let it go in your Blurple or your Zeus. You need to know that that's there. And so does Maui Half Shark demand removal? Sure. It's an engine card. It's a card that will, help. It's essentially a draw engine, right? I mean, you're drawing from your discard and you're getting to play cards, and especially in Ruby Sapphire, cards that let you draw even more cards. So it's a strong engine that you need to try and shut off before it gets going. But it is an engine that can be shut off before it even ever goes, which is kind of risky. I think they talked about it on Podcana that 6 cost is the highest cost card in Ruby Sapphire that doesn't have an enter the board effect.
I would
remain.
I'm just gonna say though, like, certainly high risk, but I think it's a lot of reward potential on it. So it has a lot of upside. And, I just, the likelihood that this is going to survive on the board, because one, you're almost certainly playing this sooner in Ruby Sapphire than you are which is why, again, like, I'm not a big fan of this card in Ruby Amethyst, because I think you're right. Like, it's too slow. In decks that I've been playing with Ruby Amethyst, it's like, you want to move faster. You want to try to control the game, because, like, ultimately, like, if you're losing and you're too slow, you're not even going to get to turn 7 to be prepared, right? Let alone worry about turn 6 to then get to turn 7 to use this to recur any type of action back to you. but I just think you're underselling this quite significantly in the Ruby Sapphire deck.
And what I would say in the argument about it's not a true enter the board, he can come out and play, and you probably already have Hiram or Tala on board to sing How Far I'll Go or something that's going to get that immediate lore from him. So not always, but it's not a true enter the board. But yeah, there are ways to get him out there and then still find. I mean, you might play him with 7 ink and just play develop right away too. You know, like in your sequencing. But yeah.
He's definitely a better engine than like Oswald, right? The reason Oswald doesn't work is because items themselves don't have enough an effect on the game for you to like win by having a bunch of them, right? You can win by having a bajillion actions because your actions are brawl, be prepared, how far I'll go, drawing cards. So, you know, Pirate's Life is another one. I mean, you could just recur Pirate's Life forever and win the game just by that. It's not likely, but
and he can sing it,
right? So I think, but then you're not recurring it, so you don't really want him to sing it.
Oh, that's fair.
I think you're right. Part of the problem is that Half Shark is a mid-late to late game card. You can't play it on curve, even if you're like you said. You know, like I agree, you need the ramp and you need to be playing it in Ruby Sapphire, but you're not ramping to play it as soon as you have 6 ink, because if you think about it, you need to, one, be taking care of their early game, right? Ruby Sapphire has this very delicate balance of ramping while also still, you either need a turbo ramp and then get to some sort of big control, or you need to do some smaller control in there with a human Sisu or a brawl or something like that. But if you're not doing that, if you're just ramping straight to Maui Half Shark, then by the time you get Maui Half Shark out, you're behind because most of these decks are faster than you. And then the only thing you have to recur from your discard is, some of those ramp tools that you just used to get to the Maui Half Shark. And so you need to have used things like Brawl and Be Prepared and things like that. If you have a Brawl or a Be Prepared in your discard and Maui Half Shark hits the board, that Maui Half Shark is 100 times better than the Maui Half Shark that hits the board when you only have like Develop Your Brain in your discard.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's like you could play, if you've got a ton of ink, you could play all your develops and your gain on lore. It's like I don't think I think that game when you play an action gain 1 lore opportunity that you get is. But I agree with you that it is definitely a mid to late game play. But I think this is a card. There's a reason why we're seeing 4 of them being played in Ruby Sapphire.
Who's playing 4 of them?
Wasn't Moyen playing 4 in his deck that he took?
I thought he was playing 3. Maybe 3. I'm sure there are people out there playing 4, but I thought 2 or 3 was typically standard. The guy, the person who got second place at CCS is playing 2. But the Half Shark is like, it's a nice card, but I think the lore gain, honestly, is if it wasn't there, I think Half Shark would still be just as good as it is now. I shouldn't say that. It's obviously not as good as it would be now, but I think the recurring of the actions is really, think about how many times you use Tamatoa and don't really care about his lore. You will throw away a popsicle to quest for 1 with Tamatoa to get the popsicle back before you quest for 2 with Tamatoa.
So just to correct here, Moyen had 3.
3, okay.
E.
I think the lore is just like a bonus, nice, boat snack, like it's it's an extra thing you get here. The real power of the Maui Half Shark is the recursion of the if I turn 1 character, it's like a Tinkerbell. I turn 1 character sideways and they have a Brawl in their discard, Half Shark can take out my character and then brawl one of my unexerted characters. And so I essentially have to, it's all or nothing, right? Like I just have to kind of leave it sideways, and like it gets to this really awkward sort of game of chicken, if you will, but they have to have those valuable cards in their discard for the Maui Half Shark to be as threatening as it can be. If I'm playing a faster list like an Emerald Amethyst or even maybe a Rumi Amethyst or an Amethyst, essentially, certainly a Steel Song, I'm actually kind of happy if they rush out the Maui half shark and then just like start gaining a few piddly lore here or there just by playing develop like 5 times a turn or whatever. And they take out my Lilo and I just bring it back every turn, and it's like, I don't think
I think that's fair. I will say, even if I don't 100% agree with your opinion here, you've given us a lot of gems in this segment for clips to
No, you make good points, things I hadn't thought about. So,
but yeah,
I just think I know from my experience alone, that he was a force to deal with for a while. And granted, I haven't played there in a while, so and it sucks even worse when I can't find the answers. Even Ron sitting across from me. Yeah, where Ron's sitting across from me, he's like, "Oh, you're looking for your Hades, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, and I'm not finding it." But yeah, I've been wanting to talk about him for a while. I'm glad we did. It was a really good talk, and I think that he is a good candidate. So
must answer card.
Must answer card. Yeah.
But regardless of what we think, let us know what you think in the comments down below. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're joining us on audio, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
And if you're joining us on YouTube, which if you're not, you definitely should. It's a lot of fun over here. Please be sure to give us a like and a subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified of all of our fun live events coming up, and certainly the next episode.
You can help us continue plotting our devious plans on social media. We're on Instagram, Blue Sky, and the platform formerly known as Twitter at Rules of Villainy. Please also join us on our Discord as well at the link below.
Until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.